Welcome, rational thinkers and champions of evidence-based reasoning, to the Free of Faith podcast. This is the place where we dare to peel back the comforting but opaque layers of faith-based claims and expose their logical shortcomings. Today's question is, does Christianity truly provide an objective and universal morality? Or is its so-called moral foundation just a patchwork of human emotions, culture, and interpretation? Let's take a careful walk through the evidence. Imagine a kingdom ruled by King Kevin. His counselors insist that breaking any of his laws leads to prison. Yet no one has actually seen these laws written down. Instead, the counselors say that Kevin's spirit lives inside people's hearts and reveals what is right and wrong. If someone's behavior matches their idea of Kevin's will, they say he has followed the Spirit. If not, they accuse him of rebellion. To make things worse, Kevin has been gone for centuries, and the book of his rules is full of contradictions. His counselors argue endlessly about what each rule means. They assure everyone that Kevin is not the author of confusion, but confusion is exactly what his kingdom runs on. Now imagine asking whether those laws are objective or merely the product of human disagreement. This, in essence, is the situation with the Bible. If a perfect and omniscient being wanted to provide moral laws for all people, those laws would be so clear that nobody could mistake their meaning. Every rule would be explicit, consistent, and understandable across languages and generations. Yet what we actually have is a text that allows endless debate, thousands of denominations, and moral positions that range from compassion to cruelty, all claiming divine backing. To see how deep that confusion goes, consider a few real examples. Ask Christians what counts as a legitimate marriage. You'll hear that it's one man and one woman, or two loving partners, regardless of gender, or any union blessed by the correct God, or any contract recognized by law. Ask when divorce is permissible. Some say only for adultery, others for abuse, neglect, or even for feelings of incompatibility. Ask about masturbation, sexual acts within marriage, or polygamy, and the answers scatter. Ask whether spanking children is biblical, or whether speeding is sinful, or whether lying to a business competitor is ever acceptable, and again, the answers diverge. If the moral law of God is supposed to be objective and eternal, why can't his most faithful followers agree on what it says? That diversity of belief looks exactly like the product of culture and emotion. People tend to baptize their own intuitions. Societies change, values evolve, and Scripture becomes a mirror reflecting each generation's priorities. If morality were truly handed down by an all-knowing deity, we'd expect convergence, not fragmentation. Let's use a few simple comparisons. Think of a GPS. If it gave vague or conflicting directions, you wouldn't say the drivers lack faith, you'd say the GPS is broken. Or picture a law book whose wording on serious crimes is open to multiple interpretations. A wise ruler would not write laws that lead good citizens to opposite conclusions. Or imagine an instruction manual for a machine, written so loosely that every user assembles it differently. You'd call that a design flaw, not a test of trust. The Bible behaves like all three: unclear, contradictory, and open to manipulation. Let's frame this logically. If a perfect God created moral law, it would be explicit and universally clear. The Bible's moral directives are ambiguous and depend on interpretation. Therefore, they cannot be the product of perfection. If Christianity provided an objective moral framework, believers would largely agree on moral questions. They do not. Therefore, the framework fails. And if a compassionate and powerful God wished to reduce suffering, he would make moral truth unmistakable. Yet confusion about moral rules has fueled oppression and violence for centuries. That pattern fits human error far better than divine clarity. Theologians, of course, have responses. Some say God's ways are mysterious, but a mystery cannot function as a guide. Others say the ambiguity protects free will. Yet free will does not require confusion. You can freely obey clearly stated laws. Some claim the Bible's harsh commands fit ancient culture and were never meant for all time. But that concession undermines the claim of timeless morality. Others insist the Bible teaches core principles like love and justice, not exhaustive rules. But without clear definitions of what love and justice require, the principles dissolve into slogans. Still others blame human sin for misunderstanding. But if divine revelation depends on flawless readers, it is useless. Some argue that ambiguity strengthens faith. Yet faith, that must fill the gaps of confusion, looks more like wishful endurance than trust in truth. Finally, some say community interpretation keeps believers on track. But the existence of thousands of disagreeing communities shows that collective study multiplies differences rather than resolves them. So, what kind of evidence would actually show a divine moral code? We would expect universal agreement across cultures and centuries on specific moral rules. We would find religious texts anticipating future moral dilemmas with precise guidance. We would observe supernatural preservation of the texts, with zero corruption or dispute. We would experience direct divine communication available to everyone, producing identical conclusions. None of this occurs. Instead, we find human patterns. Some people obey rules simply because authority tells them to, without asking whether those rules make sense. Others make moral decisions by how they feel in the moment, by empathy, disgust, anger, or affection. Still others try to reason through moral questions by consistent principles such as fairness, well-being, or honesty. Each method is recognizably human. Blind obedience ignores context. Emotion provides warmth, but shifts with mood and culture. Reasoned reflection at least tries for consistency, but even there, people weigh different values differently. None of this resembles an infallible download from a perfect mind. When we step back, the picture is clear. What passes as divine morality carries the imprint of humanity. It reflects cultures and emotions shaping principles over time. The Bible reflects this process rather than transcends it. If a truly compassionate and omniscient God existed, moral confusion would vanish. Instead, we see endless disagreement, selective reading, and moralizing without a coherent foundation. So perhaps the question isn't whether Christianity's morality is objective. The better question is why so many continue to call it divine when it behaves exactly like a human invention. If this conversation has sparked some questions or even some discomfort, that's a good thing. Questioning is the first step toward clarity. Don't settle for easy answers or platitudes. Dive deeper, explore further, and demand evidence. Head over to Free of Faith to read the full article and join the discussion. Let's keep this conversation going, because the pursuit of truth doesn't stop at questioning. It's about finding answers that actually make sense. Thank you for tuning in to the Free of Faith podcast, where we expose the logical failings of faith and celebrate the clarity that comes with reason. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and remember, rationality always outperforms faith. Engage reality, and I'll see you soon.